Hello, and welcome to episode 144 of the Elevate Your Running podcast. This week's episode is all about how to Boston qualify after a training setback. And I think this episode is going to be so great because it could actually apply to maybe running your strongest race after a training setback. I'm here today with Elevate athlete Danielle Freeman and her husband, Danny Newman. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, it's going great. How are you?
Yeah, hey Sarah, thanks for having us.
You're welcome. It's so great to see you and to have this time to have a conversation. Let's kick off this episode with an elevated moment. Danielle, I'll have you start.
Sure. So I think my elevated moment, it is race week for the Chicago Marathon, which I'm running on Sunday. And um, Sarah has put all of the Elevate Chicago athletes into a WhatsApp group. And it's been really great to kind of bounce ideas off each other and have suggestions and just kind of hype each other up. So that's been fun, going into race week. And I think specifically one runner, Melissa, had put out like a great little itinerary that she'd broken down that her and her friend had put together. And it was just like a really great, thing to see and like a reminder of all the things that we need to pack during race week. And then also, have a kind of a slight itinerary as well. So appreciate that group so much.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we're recording. It is Chicago Marathon Race Week. My most favorite week out of the year. This is an incredible week, and I'm so excited for you, Danielle, and everything that you get to accomplish over the weekend. And the Elevate team has been really great. There's a strong group heading into Chicago, heading into the Windy City for this race, and it's been really fun to have everyone come together, support one another, give suggestions, give tips. I know there is an athlete in the group training program, Logan, who offered up all his restaurant recommendations, which was a lot of fun too for the group. And I just love seeing everyone support each other. And it's just such a cool thing. So I'm glad that you have them. And I know you're going to have a great day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Danny, you're up.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to go 2 weeks back and talk about Boulderthon. I know you've touched on this in your past podcasts, but really running with the Elevate team, I'm not the runner of the family at all. So running this 10K was kind of pulling teeth at times. Danielle could tell you. But running with Logan and Rachel, having the group like do a pre-workout before Boulderthon, getting your head in the right mind space that it needs to be before a race, and then running with your friends. What better feeling can you have? And then you kind of just pull away a little bit, and you can see some people maybe go a little bit quicker or a little bit slower. But I think just overall, the whole experience and of the past summer, just training with the team. No one really likes to kind of run by themselves all the time. So having, the workouts and being able to run with a friend or a family member or a complete stranger that I didn't know half the people, like Logan, for example. I got to meet him, and now we're kind of become good friends through the Elevate team. So just the whole experience through the summer, and then culminating with the Boulderthon 10K. It was such a blast, and really proud to be part of the team.
Yeah, it's so great to have you part of the team. So yeah, Danny's part of the summer training team, and
You
I
have the
think
Dannies now on your team, yeah. So that's crazy, but no, I think 10K is a good spot for me. We have the marathoner here, and I don't want to steal anybody's thunder or anything like that.
I think it's great. You both are like you're just the dynamic duo, and that's part of the reason why we wanted when we talked about this, we had this episode topic actually came up at Boulderthon after the race, and we decided let's bring both Danielle and Danny on because they are an incredible duo. Danny supports Danielle in every way possible through training, and he is also going to be on the course helping with hydration on race morning and vice versa. Like Danielle is I think a great inspiration for Danny, like all the things that she does. But it's been super fun to have you both like coaching you and just getting to know you more throughout the summer and throughout just training in general. And Danny, I have to say, like, I think you totally sandbagged the entire summer because everyone listening, Danny crushed Boulderthon 10K. The week before, we were making friendship bracelets at an athlete's house, and Danielle walks in and she's like, "You're never going to believe what Danny did today." And I said, "What?" She's like, "He ran the 10K." And I'm like, "He ran the 10K? Like he raced the 10K? Oh my gosh, he just raced his race." Lo and behold, Danny shows up a week later and he's ready to go. And you cut how many minutes off your 10K? Like 4 or 5?
5 minutes. Yeah, 5
Yeah.
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, and the course was tough. It was a tougher course for sure. The course lent itself well to see other teammates. There was an Elevate cheer squad out there too, which helped a lot. And it was a lot of fun in the out and back to be able to see people. And you crushed it. Like the last 4 miles are basically uphill on this very long incline, and you ran very consistent splits, if not negative split, and it was a strong showing.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Didn't mean to sandbag by any stretch of the imagination, but I think seeing Danielle run and look, I can never say never, right? I could, if I had the right amount of time, I could probably do a marathon. But seeing Danielle and the paces she's been doing, like I know it's achievable that she's running like a 7:15, a 7:20, a 7:30, a 7:10 minute mile, right? So if she can do it, it almost pushes me like we're a little competitive with each other. So I was like,
I
well,
can
wait,
confirm this.
yeah, I was like, wait, what did you do like when she did the Berlin Marathon, she got a PR there and ultimately BQ'd there. And I was like, well, what did you do your 10K in, right? Like who asked that question? But so I'm like, all right, well, she did that. Maybe I could one up her a little bit. But no, I appreciate that. And like I said, I think the track workouts really helped. I think having a support group, whether it's a fan, like if you don't live in Colorado, like the three of us do, like run with a family member or a friend, really pushes you to even do stronger work. So yeah, I appreciate the kind words, but no sandbagging though.
Yeah, the group was a lot of fun this summer. There's a lot of people, a lot of runners. And what I loved so much about this group is how well everyone got along and there wasn't drama. Everyone just loved each other and supported each other and just wanted to see each other shine. And you guys helped each other in a lot of those workouts. And I know the last few leading into race day were like pretty tough, but you guys got through it together. And you also did that on race day, which was pretty exciting. I want to get into this week's episode. So, we're here to talk about Danielle and her injury, her comeback, racing Berlin, ultimately BQing at Berlin last year. And now she has her eyes set on the Chicago Marathon. And what is so cool about this episode is that as you're listening to this right now, Danielle has already run the Chicago Marathon. So, it's kind of a cool thing to experience. But for our audience who doesn't know you, Danielle, like who are you? Who is Danielle?
Yeah, so I live in Denver, Colorado with my husband Danny, obviously here. And we have two dogs, Gunner and Nova. And professionally I work in IT recruiting, but I love to travel. I love adventure and creativity, and obviously running is a big part of my life as well, and big into like health and fitness. And so yeah, I think after we moved to Colorado about 2.5 years ago, I really wanted to find a running community, and that's when I found Elevate.
Yeah, and we've been working together pretty much ever since, maybe a little on and off in the beginning.
Yeah.
But it's been a lot of fun to see you grow as an athlete, for you to lean into a lot of process goals. You're stronger, you're faster, you're creating breakthroughs and you're breaking through plateaus. And it's just been really fun to see you kind of shine, especially in this last prep for Chicago, and just really seeing your confidence just soar, which has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. When did you start running?
I guess maybe like freshman year of college was really when I like started running. But I ran my first, I guess, marathon in 2015. So kind of off and on again, over the past like what I guess that's like about 15 or so years.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, specifically like getting more serious about it probably, in the last 5 years or so.
Yeah, that's great. So you've built a lot of consistent years or consistent base at least
Mhm.
going into these marathon cycles, really trying to nab and catch the unicorn. What made you decide to want to qualify for the Boston Marathon?
Yeah, so I guess my first marathon, I really didn't have any goals or expectations. I ran it pretty well and like finished feeling like, oh, I could go faster than this. Um and that's kind of when I was like, oh, what am I capable of? I guess was kind of the question in my head. And so that's when I started thinking about the Boston Marathon. And then, fun fact, I was actually born on Marathon Monday. And so it was always kind of my dream, like if I could line up to run the marathon on my birthday, which didn't happen, but so I kind of knew about that as well. So yeah, and then I've just kind of over the past 10 years been really interested in the world majors as well. And so obviously Boston's one of those. So that was on my list as well.
I think too. We looked the other day. It's like 2032 will be on your birthday.
Yeah.
We did look it up though because she was
Um,
curious because we look everything up when it comes
my
to running.
My birthday lands on a leap year, so it gets skipped for one of the Boston marathons.
Oh,
It's a little bit later, yeah.
it is. Oh, shoot. Well, who knows? I mean, you could definitely, if you're still running, you could
Yeah.
definitely make it happen. I think what's so cool is as you go into, you are running the 2025 Boston Marathon, and it is going to be your birthday week, so to speak. So it can be a fun way to celebrate as you head into that entire experience, which is really a one of a kind experience. And I think a lot of runners find themselves kind of in this situation that you did. Like you sign up for your first marathon. I think you did the right thing. You just went into it. You wanted to see, like, I just want to finish strong. I just want to finish this. I don't really have any real goal other than like finishing, don't hurt myself, all the things, right? I don't want to hit the wall. And you came out of it saying, okay, now I know kind of baseline. I want to go after this goal. And I think a lot of runners have that. Some runners can find that Boston Marathon goal pretty quickly. Others, it takes years and years and years to kind of come to fruition. Like, what was your experience in finding the Boston Marathon?
Yeah, it definitely took years and years.
Yeah.
um, I would say, yeah, like maybe 2016, 2017, it was kind of on my radar, but I was training doing zero speed work and just running all of my runs at about an 8-minute pace, thinking, okay, well, that's what I need to run the marathon in. So I'll just run all my runs at that.
Yeah.
Um, so I really had no business, going after that goal. But I got close a couple times doing that. And then, yeah, I think in 2018 was the first time we joined actually Danny and I both joined a group that did kind of a group coaching plan. And so I was loosely following that. And that's when I really got close and I was like, okay. So there is actually like a strategy to this.
Yeah, shout out MIT. That's what we were doing in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's originally where we're from. And that's how I got involved. But it was funny.
Yeah.
We were just walking the dogs like yesterday, and Danielle turned to me and she's like, "Other than Berlin, I never had a race plan. Like
Yeah.
I just ran."
I was like, I'll just run 8-minute
She's
pace
like,
the
I
entire
winged
time.
it. I was like, what do you mean you just winged it? She's like, yeah, until I met Sarah, like I never really had like a 5K plan, a 10K plan. I was just like winging it. And then like Berlin, I had a plan and I crushed it. And now I have a plan for Chicago and vice versa. Right. Like, and now she's just like, I was like, what'd you do in the past? She's like, I don't know. I just looked at my watch. I was like, all right, 8 minutes. Cool. I'll just keep pace.
It can be easy in the moment to do that, right? You're going out, you're just like doing what you want to do in the moment.
Mhm.
But, following a plan and being consistent, and you are the queen of consistency. I think I am in your life to kind of hold you back a little bit sometimes. And I'm the same way as an athlete. And I think it just goes to show that over time, you can create with consistency, you can create these stepping stones in the 26.2 or whatever race distance you're looking at. Danny, for you, the 5K, 10K, like these stepping stones to get faster, to get stronger, to have new goals. And the goals can always shift around and change. So we started working together in 2022. And in the fall, we were training together. And I still remember the text that I got. And you were on a training run. It was a long run, and something happened. Do you want to share with the audience what happened?
Yeah, I think it was what 18-mile maybe run, and
It was a long one.
yeah, and I I think there was like a couple different sets of running marathon pace miles, and did the first set, and then on the second one, I just like the back of my I guess heel slash Achilles immediately I knew something was off, was in pain, and never really felt like a pop or anything, but just like immediately knew, okay, this is not normal, this is not right, and kind of tried to regroup a couple times, and then ultimately just bagged the run. I think at like 13 miles, and that was like the first time I think I've ever stopped a long run like that with that amount of time left. So yeah, I definitely remember that day too. It was at Wash Park.
I was on a training run because I remember coming back to it. I was on like a very long run too. And I'm like, ooh, yikes. I could like feel the urgency in the text
Yeah.
of the situation. And yeah, and it was an Achilles injury. And it was something that, can you remind me what we were training for?
So it was the Donna Marathon in
That's right.
Jacksonville, Florida.
That's right. Yeah. So we had a few months to go, quite a few months to go,
Yeah.
handful of months to go. But you were training for the Donna Marathon, which is in February. And we had to put a halt to training, and we needed to get you healthy. So can you kind of go through that process of how long did it take? What was your routine like? And maybe how did you stay motivated there during this time? Because there was zero running.
Yeah. Yeah, I think immediately went to physical therapy, which is not like me. Normally, I kind of let things fester, and like I'm like, oh, I can fix it myself, and eventually we'll get better. But no, I kind of knew like I need to immediately get on this. So I think maybe like the next day or like that week, I got into PT and kind of had it assessed, and basically pretty much knew the race was going to be off the table at that point, and so kind of had to accept that. But yeah, I just really leaned into like the PT exercises and kind of working on some strength training. And then I was also doing biking instead of running. So I was consistently biking as much as I could, and I even had to stay like sitting in the saddle because getting up out of the bike was also aggravating the Achilles as well. So I think that was 6 weeks, because I remember my first kind of return to run was January 1st of, I guess,
Mhm.
2023. And it was like 1 minute run, 90-second walk for like 15 minutes. And it was like the greatest run of all time because I was just so happy to be out there and not be in pain. And then kind of from there, just, increase those minutes, over the next month or so. And funny enough, I actually ended up still going to Florida when I was going to do that race. And I vividly remember running. And at that point, I had gotten up to 9 minutes of running and 1 minute of walking. So it was much different than running a marathon, which is what I thought I would be doing that weekend. But I just remember feeling so grateful after that run because I think I had done 60 minutes altogether, and had run in 9 minute intervals. And it's just funny how when you're injured, you really think about what's important, and you don't take for granted what you do when you're kind of in the thick of training, and you have something very trivial that happens versus like when you cannot run at all.
Yeah, I really like that mindset. It's like when we are working hard in training, it can be very easy to get down on how tired we are or how hard the paces are, whatever's going on. But really, it is something that we love to do, and it's not something I think many of us or any of us want to go through. Is our body telling us we can't do it rather than us making that decision.
Mm-hmm.
How important, or can you kind of describe like the team of people around you that were supporting you during this time? Because injury can be this really interesting place for a runner because you are, or for an athlete, like you are kind of taken out of the sport that you love. And it's very, very important to have a team surrounding you. So, can you kind of go into detail around that?
Yeah, and that's interesting because on my first physical therapy session, he asked me, what are you doing to de-stress, or what are you doing for your happiness or to fill your cup or things like that? And I kind of didn't have a good answer at that point. I was really kind of still feeling my feels about the injury and everything, and he was
Yeah.
like, this is why it's really important to like cultivate different hobbies or different things to do outside of running, because when that's taken away from you, you often end up in like depression or just like feeling down because you don't have the outlet that you normally have. So I think
Yeah.
really, yeah, the Peloton bike kind of like saved me there. I love doing those classes to kind of keep me motivated. But yeah, definitely PT. And then obviously I worked with you kind of trying to keep
Mm.
that like endurance cardio going. And then I know I joined a couple of like the Elevate calls that you hosted, which was really great. Just to kind of be around other runners, even though I couldn't run. I think it was also in the winter too. So like, it was kind of nice to do it virtually instead of having to be out in the cold. And then obviously, Danny helped me quite a bit, and my family just, um, you know, I think it's when you have that extra time when you normally would be training, you kind of lean into, okay, I can spend more time with friends and family. And so I kind of did that. And yeah, just tried to work on, like I said, finding those things that I enjoyed outside of running as well, and kind of reminding myself, because I think as marathoners we kind of get stuck into this routine of we're just running, 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 and there are a lot of other things that make up who we are and what we like to do, and we can kind of let those kind of go to the wayside when we're training.
It is funny that like we're all athletes, so like to try and hold back the athlete inside, that's a little tricky, right? Like she was
Hmm.
hurt, but like she wanted to do the bike, right? We got a treadmill too because here in Colorado, when it snows, then the sun comes out, it melts, but at night it gets cold, so everything becomes ice. So if you wake up in the morning to run, you're either running with yak tracks on outside or you're literally walking or watching every step you take. So we got a treadmill, but like it's so like she was injured, but like I could see it in her. Like she needed to still do something. So the bike was very crucial. And even though like you should take it easy, just that athlete inside of her was like, I still have this like urge to be doing something. I can't just be a couch potato. I can't, even though rest is very important, but like it was so interesting that athletes always find a way to still be active when injured. Cause in a weird sense, this was not our first big injury. We had a big injury in Columbus, your hip, and like it was almost like we knew the correct steps how to get her back to running because this wasn't her first injury, right? So like
Yeah.
we remember in Columbus, like the correct things we did for you to get back to running. So when she had this injury, we knew the correct things to do to get her back to running. Every injury is a little bit different, but having that like blueprint almost of A, then B, then C really helped. And in a sense, like we are complete opposites. Like if she starts sneezing, I'm like, go to urgent care, go get it looked at ASAP, right? And she's like, no, I'm fine. Like if it was me, I'm literally leaving right now to the doctors, right? So like when
Yeah.
she got injured, she was like, I'm okay. I'm like, no, you need to go like now, right? So like I think when this second injury happened when we were here, she knew like I can't just sit on this. Like I can't just ice it. Like something like she knew something was off. And luckily, like me being the weirdo I am of like go to urgent care even if like you have a tickle in your throat. Like she probably doesn't need to go to urgent care, but I that's just me. Like I think she knew deep down like I really need to hit this now and I can't sit back and wait. And also go get a second opinion. Like go get it. Like what's the
Yeah.
worst that happens? No, you're fine. Just ice it. Then you go home and you ice it. Like it can't hurt to like go immediately to just get it checked out. So
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that too. Like anytime there's a niggle, um, I want to get it looked at. I want to get it checked out. I'm also a coach that promotes that, and anytime an athlete kind of sits on that, it's like, okay, well, we're just delaying when we can get back to do this, you know? It's just delaying the process.
Yeah.
But it's also like it's a balancing act for sure. And I remember the team call with Dr. Justin Ross, the mindset psychologist, and I think you asked the first question that night of like about injury and like how to like flow through it. And he was just so great with his words and advice. And I think it's really important when you are kind of in this setback era or you're in this injury season that you can find those other outlets, these other hobbies. You still can fulfill that athlete side, given that the PT gives the all clear that you can do it. And like you're able to flow through the rest and flow through it all to come back through the other side. Now you got through your injury. We started working together again on a more like consistent, let's get back into like run training kind of relationship. It was like, it was definitely in the spring of 2023.
Yeah.
And you said, I got into Berlin.
Yeah.
Got into Berlin, which is like late September 2023. And we were going for a BQ at Donna's marathon. So we decided to pick up training, see how your body felt, see how speed felt as we very slowly built that back in. And we went on. I mean, you did all the hard work. You went through a season of training for a BQ at Berlin.
Yeah.
Can
It's crazy to think about.
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember the morning, it happened in the morning. You checked your email and you like lost it. I'm more of the extrovert in the relationship. If we can't tell, if you're watching this, you probably can tell. But listening, I'm more the extrovert. But like she like went like she did a dance, like she was very excited. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so I know that I remember exactly where we were. It's kind of like one of those moments I'll never forget, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same with Boston too.
I
just
think
like the text for Boston, right? I got in.
Starbucks, yeah, I got it.
where?
I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, I think I'd been trying to get to Berlin for about 5 years, and every year had gotten a rejection. So I was like shocked when I got that email. So
Yeah, it was kind of like everything came together because you were back to running and you were feeling good and you had such a great support system with Revo PT in Denver and them like really providing you with all the tools at this point in training to stay healthy. Can you kind of go through like your training for Berlin? Were there any like workouts or training strategies that you really found particularly helpful as you were going through this season? And was there any like negative things or like self-doubt kind of creeping in throughout training because you were on a bike for a few months and you weren't running and you were coming back to it, and I feel like that could be maybe overwhelming at times.
yeah, for sure. Um, I guess kind of going back on January 1st, I when I back to when I went to that first run or run 1 minute running. I had also did my intentions for the year, and I wrote down in my journal that I was going to have a marathon PR and BQ because I think I had found out about Berlin maybe that month. So I had kind of like delusionally said, okay, I'm gonna BQ even though I'm running for 1 minute right now. And this race is in 9 months. But yeah, so I think we started working together maybe in April.
Mhm.
So yeah, basically from like March until June, I was only doing easy running and just kind of building that base. Which I remember kind of being a little bit nervous about, like, oh, I should be doing speed work. I'm going to be behind by the time I start training. But ultimately, I think that really did help me kind of have like a really great endurance base at the beginning of training. And then I still remember, I think my first speed workout back was I was only allowed to do like 400s in like late June.
Yeah.
And so I really kind of looking back, I feel like I didn't do as much speed work as I probably could have for that training cycle. But,
Yeah.
I think we were being more on the conservative side, obviously, like coming back from injury. But yeah, I was, still consistently going to physical therapy, really like leaning into easy running, like probably for the first time ever, like truly like running on a low heart rate, and not running at race pace every single run. So I think that definitely helped. And then, yeah, actually doing the speed workouts, and I think doing them with a group also really helped, motivate me, because I think every other time I tried to do speed work, I would just quit halfway through if I was doing it by myself. So, um, yeah, I think, yeah, just consistently showing up. There definitely was, negative, I guess, thoughts that crept into my mind from here to there. And I think especially to, training in Denver at altitude sometimes can make you feel like you're out of shape when you're not.
Yes, it can.
So I, I remember running like marathon pace a couple times, like there is no way I'm going to be able to do this for the race, but it all kind of came together. So, but yeah, I did try to do a little bit of journaling. I don't think I did as much as I am doing now, but um, and then I think, having you to kind of be a sounding board for when I did have those negative thoughts, and just being able to have someone to kind of talk it through with, whether it be Danny or you or other members of like the Elevate team, really helped as well.
Yeah, the in person is huge in moments like the speed workouts or the track workouts where you're questioning things and you're thinking, how am I going to be able to do X in a certain number of weeks or months? But that's why we train, right? Because we shouldn't be able to run our race 8 weeks out or 12 weeks out. And one of the best things about being able to see you weekly is like adjusting your workout if we need to, or pushing you a little bit harder if I want to, or if it makes sense. But I think, yeah, you built up pretty conservatively. We worked a lot of marathon pace, maybe a little bit of a half marathon pace. It wasn't a lot of short, fast track workouts, which is fine because you don't necessarily need that for marathon training. You were going into Berlin. We had a goal to BQ. You needed a 3:30 to BQ for that time, right?
3:35.
3:35. And you were in shape to run faster than that, which was, it's always great, right? So knowing all of that and having your race plan and having the ABC goals, you're flying internationally. How did you really manage your expectations and your nerves going into that race?
Yeah, I was very nervous about the time change. I think it was like a 9-hour time difference,
Yeah.
in Berlin. I actually use this app that helps you adjust to different time zones and to prevent jet lag. And I can say that I literally had zero jet lag. So I think that app like totally saved me. But yeah, I think I just kind of did what I've been doing throughout the whole summer, and stayed consistent and stayed with the plan, and tried to like rest as much as I could, um, slept as much as I could on the plane, and then tried to get right onto the Berlin time zone, like right when I landed. I think definitely really helped. Um, and yeah, the nerves, I definitely was nervous. But I just feel like, nerves can be either a negative or positive thing, however you want to frame it. And so I tried to like channel that into like, I really care about this goal. I've put a lot of work in. These nerves are just my body telling me like, we're getting ready for this race.
We also got there an extra day early. So we got
Yeah.
the expo stuff out of the way. We got in the hotel, we walked around, and then the next day we like kind of like walked around the course. Like we saw where the start would be,
Hmm.
we saw where the
Mhm.
half would be, we saw where the end would be. Like you could visually almost like see it. I think that is very helpful. Um and then like Danny's going to be at this spot. Danny's going to be at this spot. Like, I think that also helped you too, like calm your nerves and be a little less
Mhm.
stressful because then you know, hey, Danny's going to be right there. And I think getting there and getting adjusted as quickly as you can, but like
Hmm.
visually seeing what the now granted there was only like 5 people when we were there compared to like hundreds of thousands that were going to there the next day, but like going to see where the start sign is and going to see where I would be at the half and seeing the finish line, like, I think that really helped you a long ways too. So
And I think if you've never been to like a major world marathon, the energy is just palpable and it's just so exciting. And I think feeding off of that too really helped. It's funny whenever I don't do a major now, I'm like, oh, this is like not as exciting. But they have their pros and cons. But yeah, it's just like the energy and being around so many runners who have like similar goals is like really special.
Yeah, yeah, it can be a lot of fun, and I love that you went out on the course to figure out like where is Danny going to be. So you felt comfortable. You felt secure in that. And it's not like I've had family members or friends say, like, I'm going to be at, mile 15, and mile 15 comes and goes and they're not there. And you're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
But to actually know, like, oh, Danny's going to be standing by this sign or by this, like, landmark probably helped quite a bit as you were flowing through the race.
Hmm.
Now, earlier on in this episode, Danny mentioned that you got the BQ in Berlin, which is great. Yay, you ran a 3:25. It was such a strong day. I remember waking up. It was probably like 3:30 or 4 a.m. Mountain time, and you were still running. And I checked the app, and I'm like checking your splits, and really like invested to like want to see you hit this goal because you were so excited and you put in so much hard work, and you were coming back essentially from this big, injury and this time where you weren't necessarily running or training. But like when you were running, I know Kipchoge was also running that day, correct? Yes, he was.
It was.
So I'd love for Danny to kind of share a story about that. And then also, Danielle, when you're ready, like, when was that moment when you were running that you knew you were going to hit your time goal?
Yeah, so I'll start. Such a head case over here, this one. So it was a hot day, and what's crazy is I think Berlin is one of the only world majors that the time is they don't start, like Danielle didn't start till almost 9:30 Berlin time. Like usually you start between 7 and 8. So this is like another
A
hour
little
and
bit
a half.
later.
We're like in the hotel room, like just like get even more nerves, right? Because you're so used to like waking up 7 a.m. going and let's run, and the marathon didn't even start till like 9:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at the halfway point, we came up with a plan where she started off with a water bottle, and I was going to hand her another water bottle with electrolytes, the whole 9 yards at the halfway point, like right after like 13.1.
Hmm.
And the big news was Joey was there. And obviously, he and his camp said that they wanted to break the record. So get under 2. Like him and his whole team was saying that for months, that this was his race to try to break 2. So of course it's this like overwhelming like conversation everybody's having at the expo. You run into other people like whether they're from the UK or like in Germany, and you're like are all like the runner community knows that this is like a huge
Big.
talking point. Yeah. So at 13.1, Danielle sees me, comes out, like starts running towards me where I was, and I got like the bot. I'm like ready to go, like I'm all like in position, like ready to take her bottle, hand her off, like I'm a NASCAR, like changing tires or whatever. And the only thing she says to me at 13.1 is, "Did he break the record? Did he break the record?" And I said no, and then she like zoomed past me, and I was like, "Oh crap! I should have said yes, because if I said no, then like I'm playing mind, like that's gonna affect her mind. Like, oh, he didn't do it. Like I'm bummed out. Like I should have just said, yeah, you did. You can do it too. Like go." But like I said no, and I'm like laughing, like that's what's on this girl's mind at 13.1, trying to BQ is whether or not he broke 2 or not. It's wild. Like
I
I would
love
not
it.
first thought, but that was the only thing she said to me.
I will
Yeah.
say, like, yeah, I was in the second wave, I guess, and right before we started, they were putting up him on the screen, and they were saying, "Oh, he's on pace to be under 2," and like everyone was cheering. And it was like this big. It just like the energy again was really great at the beginning. So I think that's why it was like in my mind. But funny you said that. I remember before I got to Danny, and this kind of answers your question. Is I was like, I only have time to ask one question or one kind of sentence or whatever, and so I was toggling my mind between asking what I did or saying, "Tell Sarah I'm going to BQ." I
That would
don't
have been a much
I
better
don't
story. Yeah.
I don't think I had the confidence I do
That
now,
would have been a much better
because
story.
but that was what was in my mind. I think at the halfway point, like, I knew I was going to BQ, which, looking back, I'm like, that is kind of delusional because there's so much more left in the race.
Yeah, but sometimes like you feel it, right? Like there is this feeling on the course where even if you're like if you were on pace through the half and you felt good and you knew you were going to do it, and I think the mind is so much stronger in the second half than the body, and you worked so hard not just on the physical training piece to it but also the mindset training going
Mhm.
into Berlin, and you have definitely elevated that going into Chicago. Can
No
you
pun intended.
yeah, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Can you talk more around like your journaling process and your visualization and what your ultimate the time goal that you ran at Berlin and then what you had been journaling about for Berlin, and that's that time goal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started, I think, journaling right away, like right maybe in June, specifically for this race, but I had been journaling kind of before that as well. That was kind of what helped me kind of get through the injury as well. Um, so every week I was writing out, my plan for the week and then how it went. And then I was picking like one motivational quote and then kind of doing some doodles or different things. And then, kind of writing what I thought my time goal would be. And each week I would kind of do that, and I was like, oh, this would be great. I can bring this with me to Berlin, and I can read it the morning of the race and read all these motivational quotes and kind of look back and see everything I had done, and all the workouts, all the hard days. And um, so every week I had been writing 325. And it's funny because I think I was telling Danny this the other day, when we were working together, I don't think we really talked about a time goal until our race call. So for the
Right.
entire summer, I was just kind of like, I know I need to be under 335, but I don't really have like a specific, we hadn't talked about a specific goal, but that was kind of in my head of like 325. I feel like I can do this. It would be a pretty big PR and definitely get me into Boston. So that's why I started writing. And I remember the first time I wrote it feeling like delusional about it. Like there was no way I could do it 325. And then each week it kind of just became more and more real. And yeah, I remember in Berlin, I also kind of did the visualization of like, because the end of Berlin goes through like the Brandenburg Gate. And so kind of, I always visualize that kind of at the end of my long run. So I remember when I like turned and I saw the gates and I was like looking down at my watch and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get a 325, and just I don't know. I was like full body chills and kind of, and you're also at the end of a marathon and a world major, and it was such an incredible feeling.
Yeah, yeah, that just gives me goosebumps. Like that's just so cool, and I just love how much the journaling and the visualization helped you through Berlin, and it's been something that you've carried on throughout the last year. And we did talk about a Chicago goal,
Yeah.
and we were sitting at coffee earlier this summer, and I don't know if you like asked me what I thought or we were talking about it, and I shared what I thought, and you said, "Well, that's the number I've been journaling about. That's the number I want to run. That's the time I want to run." I love
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so crazy. And kind of similarly to Berlin, I remember when I first wrote it down thinking, oh, this is a very lofty goal. And I even remember the first couple track workouts, I was talking to some of the other athletes there, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, this is too lofty of a goal. I don't know what I was thinking. And now I think I told Danny last week or 2 weeks ago, like, I think I could maybe go faster than this goal if it was a perfect day. Like, so it just goes to
Mhm.
show that like at the beginning of your training, things can shift dramatically, whether it be mindset or paces, of what you set for your goals.
Absolutely. And it's like one of the reasons sometimes with athletes, we don't talk about time goals at the start. Like, let's just go through training. Let's go through, that marathon pace range. Let's see where it's landing, how the effort feels. And then as we get closer to race day, it gets more specific. And then we can start talking about like the ABC goal and all the good things that can be created on race day. Cause there always gets to be a plan. I think that's really important to have that backup plan in case things do start to go a little sideways. Like you don't have to jog it in. You can just, if you have to slow down a little bit, there's still that B goal to go after and you're still fighting for something and
Mhm.
making the day what it is, making the most out of it.
Yeah.
What do you think is different, maybe mentally, physically, during this Chicago prep that's different from the Berlin prep?
I'm I'm coming to the track workouts with you. That's a big
That's
difference.
right. I was hoping that was going to be the answer, Danny.
This summer.
Yeah, I think it's a couple different things. I think, let's see, in January, we both really committed to doing more strength training. So we've been like
Hmm.
consistently strength training, like heavy lifting 3 days a week, pretty much since January.
Yes.
And then I decided in the spring to just run a half marathon and try to kind of work on some faster paces. And I had done uh, 2 marathons in 6 weeks. So I was kind of just like ready for a mental break too from the marathon as well. So yeah, I think working on that marathon half marathon pace definitely helped make the marathon pace feel easier. And yeah, the mental part of it, I think I just have a lot more confidence. I mean, with anything, the more you do it and the more consistent you are, you feel more confident in it. And yeah, obviously, like Danny coming to the workouts is also really great. It's nice to have like someone you can be completely real with when you're not feeling great versus like trying to put on a smile and trying to like be positive around everyone because you're trying to keep the vibe a certain way. Uh,
Totally.
so that has been nice to have him there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I had to buy a whistle for practice because Danny joined the team. I didn't use it though.
No, but Sarah, we've talked about this. Like running is it's a loner sport. It's like
Yeah,
and it's like tennis. It's just you. And you can't rely on a teammate when you're out there. And it's a lot of in between the ears. And
yeah.
I I tend to be a little more confident and cocky than she does. So like I try to like give that to her because I want her to do
Mhm.
that. But like I think the biggest thing I've noticed is you did Berlin, you hit this time, and now, like you said, you've done it. So now you're like, shoot, I can do even better. Like now you know that you can do that, right? Like you asked me earlier in the show, you were like, Danny ran his 10K a week before the 10K. And like, what did I tell you when you asked me? You shouldn't do that. But I told you, I said, I need to make sure that I can do it. Like, I needed to do that so I can do it, right? Like,
Yeah, and then you crushed it
it's
7
not
days later.
runner community, it's frowned upon to like do that a week before and I'm not
Yeah,
condoning that. But like, just me personally, like the person I am, I needed to do that.
right.
My biggest difference that I see is the confidence and the cockiness that she knows that she can almost do a 315, a 316, 317,
Mhm.
right? Like
Yeah.
it's like you can see it in her, right? Like that it's like soothing confidence. So I think that's been the biggest difference between the Berlin and now training for the Chicago Marathon.
Yeah, and I agree. As your coach and as your friend, like we were talking before, Danny, you might have been getting ready for this call, and we were talking about. I was looking back on Danielle's last long run before Berlin and her comments that she made at the paces, and she overran them, but they felt really hard. And last weekend's long run, it was a totally different pace. She's like, I purposely ran in the heat and I feel great. I'm ready to go. It's just like a complete 180. And I think that that's so special to have going into this race. Like after Berlin, you ran New York City for a fun run, fun 26.2.
Yeah.
And you had like such a
That was it.
you
Fun
had
run,
so
buddy.
much fun and it was such a great progression and you just yeah it was like so much joy that day
Yeah.
and then you went into a very short 5K season. You raced a 5K, you PR'd. We went back to the 5K in March, you PR'd. You went into the Eugene half marathon, which is a tough half marathon, and you got a lot of training stimulus from that half marathon, and it did create this ability to run faster marathon paces at a more comfortable, smooth effort. Like anytime I see you on the track running or even in Wash Park running, you just look so comfortable and so relaxed. And that's a really great place to be, because the more relaxed you can be on race day, hopefully, the stronger you feel throughout the course and throughout the race. And I think it's really important for people to realize that there are these ebbs and flows in training, and you might have an injury setback. You might have a mental setback. You might have this season in life that you can't devote to training. But if you can show up and be consistent and do the things that, one, fill your heart with joy, but two, when you're ready to get back into it, you're all in, you're committed. Great things can happen from that. And you went from at the beginning of the year not running to, or running 1 minute on, 90 seconds off, to 9 months later running a 3:25 in an international race. It's an incredible story. It's super inspiring. And I hope you're really proud of everything that you've accomplished leading up to this date right now as we're recording.
I mean, I second that. Like, and you've only known her since 2022.
I
I've known her
know.
since 2010, right?
You're
So
so
like,
lucky.
yeah, yeah, that is very true. Yes, but like I've seen crying, and I've seen
Yeah.
anger, and I've seen
Mm.
like just upset at sometimes. There was a Columbus Marathon. Didn't you bonk at 18? And I think you threw up on the course. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you threw up on the course. And like you finished, and you were just like so upset with yourself. So I've seen those. Like I've seen those.
Yeah.
Not always rainbows and butterflies, but like I totally everything you just said. I totally agree,
Yeah.
because like you have totally become this just kick-ass runner, and I am always amazed when you show me your times, because like as good as I think I'm doing, then you show me your splits, which we review every night. Like after,
I
like,
know.
she comes back from a run, she like hands me her phone, doesn't even say a word. I'm eating like breakfast. I'm like, oh my god, how do you do this? Like, no, it's a marvel to see. Like, and I get a front row seat to it. And yeah.
I
Yeah.
will say too, I think there's power in kind of sharing your story, even if you don't think it's that impressive. Like I, you know, I think I posted on Instagram after I got into Boston, kind of that I had journaled about that, what I had said, like I'm gonna PR and BQ, and I kind of had put out what I had done, and I had never had so many messages from people like saying, "Wow, this is so inspiring." People from high school I hadn't talked to in forever. People like I've only met one time. It's just insane how many messages I got saying like, "This is so inspiring. Like, thanks for sharing." And um, I feel like I'm fairly humble, so I usually don't like to like talk about these things. But I mean, just like you never know who you're inspiring or who's watching you. I think so. It's there's power in like sharing that your story.
And yeah, life happens, right? Like
Yeah.
a bad day at work, or something in your personal life isn't going right. Like we've seen it all. Like it has affected us. Like, but like just to compartmentalize, like you said, Sarah, and just like be able to get in the right mindset and do this for yourself. Like at the end of the day, Danielle is not running for me. She's not running for you. She's running for herself. And I think that's what I
Mhm.
appreciate most, is that this is for her. And I love that. Like I love that running is her thing, and it's sort of my thing, but like running is her thing, and I love that. Because at the end of the day, that's who she has to, you have to take care of yourself first, and she does a really good job at doing that.
Yeah, she really, really does. I 100% agree. And like, I think it's true. Like you don't know who you're inspiring, and your story is very inspiring. And I think it's even better hearing like there have been those races that maybe you've bonked or hit the wall or didn't feel well, because those races, just because you're a Boston qualifying runner doesn't mean they're not going to happen again. But you have evolved as an athlete to do everything you can do to control what you can for race day and shift and pivot in the moment when things do pop up. I think that's one of the coolest pieces to racing, and being able to like learn from the past cycles and what you can bring into the new cycle to be able to just be a stronger, smarter runner and athlete. It's really fun. And it's fun to see you grow, and come through like the end of this taper, peaking and ready. You're ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, my Twin Cities girls were peaking and they both crushed their races. It's funny with like the Garmin watches or the smart watches, like I'm always saying to myself and to athletes I coach, like if it's a positive data point, use it. And if it's negative, throw it out. Like the watch doesn't know you, but if it's giving some positive vibes, lean into that. And is there anything else that you want to share with the audience before we end this week's episode?
Yeah, I think if you're going through an injury right now, I think it can be like you said, really overwhelming or really daunting to think about goals. But I think it's just important to realize that your life could look completely different a year from now. And I know a year seems like a long time, but it's really not. And especially with things like running or hobbies that you're really passionate about, hopefully you're going to be doing them for a long time. So I think just not looking at like the short term, I guess, or sorry, not looking ahead at the short term and looking more ahead at like the long term and what
Yeah.
you want to do long term to like fill your cup and that injury is not always going to be there. So I think it can feel like it will never end and that you will be injured forever sometimes. But just know that like if you're consistent and you work at it, like a year from now, you could have a BQ or you could, be back to running pain free. So that's
Yeah.
really what I would say to injured runners.
Yeah, I mean running is the long game, right? Or training for the marathon is the long game and it takes a lot of years to build up to get to a place where you understand as an athlete how to approach 26.2 miles. You can BQ, you can hold these faster paces and it's really really inspiring to see the commitment and seeing that progress over time. I think it's really cool, like over the last few years that we've known each other, it's like you've worked in all aspects to become this Boston qualifying runner, right? Like your mindset is so much stronger now. You're leaning in to the confidence building workouts. And something I've asked you to do is like looking back and like tell yourself or show yourself like these workouts, these long runs that you are proving yourself right, that you are making it happen and using that as a data point to carry with you on those harder days because you know that you've done it already. You have done that already.
Right.
And you've leaned into strength training and you've leaned into all these other areas that have really just up leveled you as an athlete as a whole. And that's really what it comes down to when you are chasing big goals is not just like going out there and running 8-minute miles every single day, but like having a plan and also really leaning into all those process goals.
Yeah, I think the process goals are a big one too. And also just realizing that a time goal may not serve you. I think
Yeah.
I've run 9 marathons and my favorite marathon of all time was New York City and that was my slowest marathon. So
Yeah.
I think just detaching yourself sometimes from that time goal and just taking it for the experience that it is also is helpful.
Yeah, that's great advice. Danny, any last words you'd like to share with the audience?
You
He's
know,
shaking his head.
just like add on, like why do we fall down? So we learn how to pick ourselves up. And I think Danielle
Yeah.
touched on it best is like, if you are injured right now or going through a life, I don't know, something in your personal life where running is the last thing on your mind, right? Um, a year could look completely different and running without pain should be your number one goal, right? And then like, cream of the cream of the crop would be like to BQ or do something like a PR in a race, but like, you know, not every day is going to be perfect, and it's how you face adversity sometimes. And at the end of the day, just look in the mirror and visualize and write a journal and draw unicorns. Like she can draw a unicorn now.
Pretty
It's
good artist, Danielle.
so.
Yeah.
But no, really appreciate having you in our lives. I think it's really helped not only myself, but I know it's helped her. So extra shout out to you, Coach Sarah. Really, really, truly.
Yeah, I love you both so much. You're just like so great individually, but also as a couple. And you're just
You
so
hear
great.
that? You
So
should take note. Did you hear that? Yeah.
thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you. And cheers to Chicago.
Yay!
Yeah.
Woo!
All right. Goodbye, everyone.